Hey, works better if you unmute yourself.
Pete with the assist, my man. Thank you, sir. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pete and Joe here, presented by the OBR Streaming Network and OBR.com. My name is Joe Mazzulo, and this is my man, Pete Smith. Pete, hell of a football weekend. Lots of stuff going on in the coaching world. Mike McDaniel's being a little BAB. I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy about that either if I were you, because it's the one argument you made that had any validity to it, and he immediately crapped on it.
Yeah, well, I don't really appreciate that point to be made, but either way, let's before we dive into all that, let's go back to the weekend here. What'd you think of the divisional round?
It's fun. I mean, the playoffs for the most part, unless you are that Seattle San Francisco game, have delivered. I mean, they multiple overtime games, great finishes. My biggest takeaway for this whole thing, like of the playoffs in particular, is this is what the NFL had in mind with the new kickoff rule. There is no amount of time that's low enough where you can't do the new kickoff and be in field goal range in like 2 plays. It's on some, like, I totally understand from an entertainment standpoint, but like there's a point where I'm like, there's never a win. It's always going to be the last team with the ball is going to get a say in the matter, as opposed to like it. I don't want to say it invalidates defense, but man, it really puts the defense on the back hoof when they start with the ball at the 40 and they've got to go 15 yards before their kicker, who can kick it from 80, has a shot.
Yeah, and why is it that every kicker now has like range from 60 plus? You notice that? It's like everybody's got that deep range now. It's incredible. We go back 10, 15 years, there was like one guy that could do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they do kicking balls and all that other stuff. People worship the ground Phil Dawson walked on. I don't think he kicked a 50-yard attempt until year 4.
Yeah. No. So speaking of which, with the overtime in the playoffs, what's your take there? Are you a take the ball guy? Or are you a defer guy for overtime?
I mean, based on the way they're doing it, I would defer. Just given the fact that you want to know, all you've done is you have made it college overtime from really far away, or at least theoretically really far away. You still want to know what you're going to get. Plus, if you get a stop, as happened, I mean, the Bears had it. They got the stop immediately. They get Caleb Williams the ball, who, by the way, is the main character of the NFL, or was for this season. Like, you wanted to, whether he was going to succeed or fail, you wanted to see him with the ball.
He's fascinating.
He's just good or bad. It was really good. But if you get a stop and now you just need a field goal to win, so like it is all on you to get the ball. You go down and score a touchdown, it doesn't do anything. Like, I like the regular season overtime rule, where if you score a touchdown, you win. I think that adds to it. Everybody gets the ball. Charity stuff with sort of, again, minimizing the value of defense, I think is a detriment. So, defer, kick it, pick the side of the field you get to defend, and if you get a stop and you get a field goal, you win.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. All right. Well, what else you got for the divisional round? The Bo Nix thing, I think, is tragic. Absolutely tragic. I don't care if you're a Bronco fan or not. You want to see these teams at their best. You want to see the best possible game. I don't think Jarrett Stidham's going to be a bad player for them. I'll say that right now.
Well, listen, he can. I find it very difficult for him to be any worse than the second worst quarterback in the playoffs. Fairly sure that's a safe bet. He will not be worse than CJ Stroud. He will not do it, because CJ Stroud locked that up tight. So, I mean, just from that standpoint, the Jarrett Stidham sort of got a shot at this. But the other part that's just incredibly annoying, if you are any of the 31 teams, or maybe 30 if I take away the Chiefs, the Patriots had Tom Brady. They win 6 Super Bowls. They get the easiest schedule, arguably, in NFL history this year, and they get to the postseason, and they get to win one game against a Chargers team that was completely helpless. And then they get to go to CJ Stroud, who apparently
gave him the game.
Is bet on you, and then you get then you get Jared Stidham. That's your path to the Super Bowl. Like, it's an absolute joke. If you are Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or any of these guys, you're sitting there. Oh, how do I get this path where I have to go through every year? I have to go through an absolute juggernaut.
Josh Allen had that path. He was there this year. He was there.
He had it, but
he did.
So, I mean, I guess credit to the Patriots, but I mean, it feels cheap in some respects that it was that bad. I mean,
yeah, I
think the CJ Stroud, he was so bad that it made the Houston Texans defense look that good. That, like, you would turn the ball over and Will Anderson in one play would go force a fumble. And you're just, oh my God. Like, that game should have been over at halftime. And I guess it really was. But like, the defense just kept giving them chances, which like made it worse for CJ Stroud. They're like begging you, they're putting in a tee. Please just be relatively functional. We've got a shot at this. And just, they kept setting him up and he kept looking worse. I mean, to his credit, he didn't drop a snap this week. So, I mean, up and up, it's going in a good direction.
Yeah, but Pete, that was like Shane Falco quicksand stuff, man. That was really, really rough from CJ. That was a really rough game. That's one of those things that can be a career-defining game if this doesn't start going in the right direction for him, Because if you're Houston, you got to start asking that question. You have to. I mean, I'm sure you've already had it looming, but now it's like it's real. It's real. Because that extension is on the horizon. That's a blank or get off the pot type of scenario.
Yeah, that is going to be a long, unpleasant offseason. And how does CJ Stroud rebuild the trust within the team? I know they're all saying the right thing, but are they all thinking it? Are there, for D'Amico Ryans, I'm sure most guys have his back and all that stuff, but are they sitting there going, we probably should have gone with the other guy? Is that going to be a thing if they like get off to a slow start next year? Are they going to be sitting there going, we should have brought in the backup and we didn't do it. And now I question, if D'Amico Ryans is the right guy. I think the Stroud element's going to be the bigger question. Ryans will probably be fine. I imagine, the team is basically looking at this like we were just boned. We didn't have Nico Collins. We didn't have all these other things, even though Jaden Higgins was running open all game. They had guys like Christian Kirk. They had all this stuff going for him, and he just could not function. Now, the other part they could also point at is they have absolutely no running game. God awful. After running over the Steelers and trampling them, they had nothing in that game. So, yeah, I don't know how you deal with this if you are the Houston Texans. I mean, other than like prayer, is that the answer here? Because what are you going to be doing for the next 2 months? Are you going to –
You got to do an offensive reset. You have to do everything you can to make CJ comfortable and – in an offense that he's good with and he's comfortable with and he's ready to roll in. I mean, realistically, the quickest path for them to have any success is for CJ Stroud to take a step, right? So you have to do everything you can to support him. It's that simple. I mean, it's too early to bail. It's too early. You've seen too much good and they don't have to fully commit just yet financially. I feel like you can probably put the extension on the burner for this offseason and just, he can ask for it, but he's not going to get it,
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the argument, obviously we'll see what happens to these games. If you are the Houston Texans, you sit there and you look at Sam Darnold and you go, absolute meltdown in Minnesota in the playoffs. Obviously went to Seattle and, there was a thought that they would just keep Sam Darnold until that happened. And then all of a sudden, nope, we're moving on. He goes to Seattle. Now he's in the NFC Championship, bounced back, is playing well. Yep. If he continues to do that, he now has a shot to win the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings are sitting there with J.J. McCarthy and question marks.
Yeah.
So I think that's the hopeful, optimistic view is that he's just going to be basically Sam Darnold this year. He had it, get it out of his system, continue to reinforce the offensive line, continue to try to make the operation work better, get a better running back. I mean, Marks is fine. It's just he's in the medical tent every game as a running back. That's a tough way to operate. Yeah. Can they make the situation better? Are they going to throw another offensive coordinator under the bus for this? That's a question, but it's tough. And they understand their timeline, because if you look, the list of free agents they have is massive. Because they signed a whole bunch of guys because they have that money to use now to really bolster their roster on the rookie contract. And I'm sure they'll keep a good number of those guys that help them. But like, they understand that like their time is limited on this ability to get this thing going. So no, I don't think the extension is going to be a thing. I think at best they're going to pick up his 5th-year option and basically be like, we'll see what happens. And, you know, you've sort of put us in this position and we're going to have to just work it out and see where we go. But he's got to play way better, because obviously he didn't play this bad during the regular season, but he wasn't good either. It was largely okay. He still has not found the repeat of the rookie year success. Why is that? What is the problem? What are they missing? They obviously got rid of some of the coaches with that. Bobby Slowick ultimately got removed from that situation. That's how they got to the Cayley guy or whatever they have now.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions for them to figure out. Not in an enviable position, but at the same time, like, their situation is still better than the Browns quarterback situation. So I guess it's still better from that standpoint.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Bills real quick. The first one, somebody mentioned it in chat. How about that interception call, or the not catch was an interception? I personally, I get that it was controversial. I don't think it is, though. I think it was clearly an interception. There was no legitimate possession to me. I would love to get your take on that, though.
I thought they got both calls right. Like, just watch it in full speed. He doesn't have the ball. Like, eliminate replay from the conversation. No one thinks twice about either of these plays, because on the one, the DB ends up with the ball, easy call, and then the receiver has the ball on the ground comfortably, and then it's ripped out. Like, I thought they nailed those calls. There were certainly other calls that I think they messed up. I think that the officiating in the national championship game was infinitely worse than anything I saw over the weekend relative to that stuff. So I thought they got that stuff right. You can complain about the pass interference call, although the one they had to call, even if you want to say that ball was thrown deliberately with the intent to gain pass interference on the second one. Yeah. But it was clear as day that it was DPI, like, by the letter of the rule. Now, if you want to re-legislate DPI and say it's a 15-yard penalty, I'm with that. I have no problem with that. I think the idea of just shucking it up and hoping to get a penalty and then getting 25 plus yards is ridiculous. I don't think it's there's just too many things that working against defense already, and that's the cheapest way to do this. And by that logic, basically every Hail Mary has DPI inherently. Like, so you have to be more consistent with it anyway. So it's weird that, like, well, it's defensive pass interference for a whole lot of the game, 90% of the game, and then on this one particular play, we can't call it because it's just the nature of the play. Like, they've got to get that better, but just making it a 15-yard penalty, take the college rule. I think that is the way to go to fix that element. But in terms of the catch versus interception stuff, I think they got both of them right without question. I don't sit here and quibble over, well, they didn't review it long enough. I wish all reviews were that efficient. Like, got it right and moved on. Like, that's the curious part about this thing, because all these people are like, well, they take so much time to review these other elements, but they didn't take time to review that. And we complain when they take so long to review these other elements. So let's make it as fast as that one was.
All right, let's talk about Sean McDermott. Did the Bills make the right call here? Because if you look at all the players that Brandon Beane has brought in and everything like that, it's almost similar to what happened in Cleveland, right? The coach got the axe. The general manager is going to get more power. Beane got promoted to president of football ops. I mean, what do you think here? And leading into us talking about the Browns head coaching search, should we call Sean McDermott? Is this a name that should be on our list that we should sit down and talk to?
So there's a lot here. First, they fired the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Brandon Beane's the guy who should have been fired because he couldn't get the things right that the Bills need the most, namely wide receiver. On ATI and stuff like that, people were like, surprise firings. This is one I sort of had pegged. I thought something was going to give here because there's a lot of tension in that. And last week, Sean McDermott was like taking subtle shots at Brandon Beane in preparation for that Jags game. He kept saying, like, look how great Jacoby Brissett. He's such a professional. He does such a great job. man, they did a great job trading for him.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers. Yes.
Yeah, like it was clear what he was doing. Like,
oh yeah,
anyone who was sort of looking, going, yeah, they got a receiver that helps them, and the Bills didn't. And Brandon Beane, obviously, the Josh Allen he's dining out on that forever. But like overall, his draft record. This is why I get so like annoyed when people are like saying Andrew Berry cannot draft. Brandon Beane is pretty typical. Like, this is it. People are like, man, he's been around for this long. He has 2 Pro Bowlers. Yeah, that's how this thing goes for a lot of these people. Now, on a larger conversation of this whole thing, I look at Buffalo, Cleveland, and Baltimore and how they operated. Buffalo and Baltimore obviously had more success with their head coach, but the Ravens stuck with Eric DeCosta over John Harbaugh. The Ravens kept forcing John Harbaugh to change coordinators. They never changed the front office. The Bills forced Sean McDermott to change coordinators. They never changed anything in the front office. The Browns forced Kevin Stefanski to change coordinators, never changed anything in the front office. So that is the through line that I notice, is just the owners being very loyal to the guy, the front office guy, as opposed to the coach, deciding that they are more valuable to the organization ultimately than the coach. They are making a clear determination that at least 3 teams are saying coaches are easier to find than front office executives. And I don't really disagree. But having said that, I think Sean McDermott has basically gotten what he's supposed to get out of this team. Like, they were really flawed.
Yeah.
Beyond the receiver question, which is a huge one, I thought their defense was structured poorly. Like, they kept ending up in games where their pass rush was terrible, and they just didn't have athletes on the edges. And I like Greg Rousseau as a player, but like they kept running into the Chiefs or the Ravens, and like their edge guys were just slow. They could not keep up, so they could never deal with these guys. So Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Herbert or any of those type of guys could just roll out and sort of take their time and pick them apart. And then their DBs are like slower than their linebackers. And like all of them are the same size. So they played at teams like the Ravens, and Derrick Henry just trampled them. Yep. So I just thought their structure, their defense didn't make a whole lot of sense either. So I think Sean McDermott largely got what he's going to get out of that. And as far as should he be a candidate for the Browns, I guess, I mean, they can investigate it. I don't think what Sean McDermott wants to be fits where the Browns are at. Yeah. He did the whole build. He had to go through that. And even that, the Bills were a plus 500 team when they drafted Josh Allen and developed him. It's, I don't, for what do you have, however many wins, 90 some wins, does he really want to come to Cleveland? Because if you're tasking him with building the offense, and hiring him immediately raises the expectations, which I don't think are realistic to what you need from a guy like that. If you hire Sean McDermott, everybody's going to go, why aren't you in the playoffs year one? Or why aren't you at least over 500 or over? I don't know if that's in the cards based on what they're going to have. Could they end up in that neighborhood? Sure. And if they do that, Sean McDermott's going to look like a genius, but there's a real scenario where he's going to look terrible because the Browns just have holes and not great paths to fill them. So I don't think it fits much for him. I think he'd be way better off waiting a year and picking.
I agree with that completely. Yeah.
And the Browns, I don't know if they want to, if he's the guy that they wanted to do this. Obviously, they liked him previously. They suggested him for the job previously. I think in some ways that time is sort of passed. And again, I don't know how much this factors in the Browns, but like, what was one of Sean McDermott's failures and ultimately why he was fired was the offensive coordinator. They had Brian Dable. Brian Dable did well enough to get a head coaching job. He leaves. Then they go to Ken Dorsey. He has to fire Ken Dorsey. Joe Brady is getting head coach interviews for some reason. I don't know why, because I don't think he was very good either. So even if Sean McDermott keeps his job, there's a real chance he was going to have to fire yet another coordinator and do this whole thing again. So like the head coaching job might be satisfied, and maybe he's been in the job long enough where he doesn't really think of himself as a defensive guy because he was a 9-year head coach. But that offensive coordinator would still be a monster hire, and the thinking may simply be, Let's just try to get the offensive guys the head coach because that's easier. And if they're really good, we're not going to lose them in a year or two.
Yeah. Well, and also it's there are, I want to say, some loose ties with, who is it? Washburn, the old defensive line coach, between Schwartz and McDermott. So I mean, maybe there'd be something there, but I'm kind of with you, and I think the Browns are leaning towards offense anyway. So let's get into I guess the final 5 candidates now for the second round of interviews. Now that our boy McDaniel's backed out. So Schwartz had a second interview Monday. Monken was today, and then tomorrow was supposed to be McDaniel's day, and then Thursday we got Minter. Friday we got Grant Udinsky. And then hopefully Monday we'll get Nate Shieldhouse for his in-person interview. How's this shaking out to you, Pete? Do you think, you're hearing, some Browns fans get a little antsy, the McDaniel thing pulling out. I mean, that could go in any number of directions, right? That could be him thinking he's not going to get the job and he doesn't want to publicly get passed over. Or that could be him saying, I see your quarterback room and I raise you no thank you.
There's the other possibility is that he got there and listened to ownership or whatever, and the expectations, he was like, this isn't realistic.
Yeah,
I don't put that out of the realm of possibility. They just no, we don't. We aren't grading you on a curve. We expect to be better than we were last year, and we expect you to figure it out with no real obvious path to quarterback and all these other elements. And maybe he just said, screw it. I don't know the answer to that. He may just be tired of doing interviews and sort of wanted to scratch one off the list he didn't feel was realistic. Don't know. I don't really get too worked up about that. I don't take it as some grand insult, because ultimately the Browns have to, they've got to hire somebody, and this happens everywhere. He may have a job sort of lined up, and he was sort of yeah, I'm good. I'm going to get this, whether it's the Chargers OC job, which would be a really interesting fit, or another he wants to be the Raiders head coach or whatever. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza could be really appealing, having Brock Bowers, and those players could be a much better option to him. Maybe they're less, sort of demanding in terms of win total in year one. I don't know.
Well, I will say this. I found the timing interesting because, man, he makes a lot of sense in Tennessee. He really does. He's got the familiarity with Saleh. You've got Cam Ward right there. And if he's able to go in and turn that around in a year or two, I mean, he's definitely going to be a head coach next cycle.
Yeah, but I just don't know if that's realistic for the Titans. I don't know if that's a possibility for them. You might be right.
Yeah.
I mean, I was genuinely stunned that the Lions went ahead and hired Drew Petzing.
That's it, yeah.
And, took McDaniel out of that. So I don't know. And it's not impossible that Mike McDaniel is just going to not take a job this cycle too. But it could be the Titans.
Go back to San Francisco, be an offensive assistant for a year with Shanahan and just reassess things.
I don't think he wants to do that. Because
you know what I mean.
But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be there. But yeah, I get it. Who knows? Maybe he looks at Buffalo and goes, "Hey, why not?" I don't know. But the issue for the Browns now is they have to replace an in-person interview to satisfy the Rooney Rule. They had 2 minority candidates lined up to do in-person interviews, which is what they need, Mike McDaniel and Nate Shieldhouse. So now they have a really awkward conversation to be had, which is, who do you call and be like, listen, I know we didn't have you as a second interview, but would you like a second interview that's definitely not a sham? So that part is legitimately weird. Or if the NFL is just going to come out and be like, look, man, we get it. You were going to interview a minority candidate. He pulled out. We're not going to force you to do this and basically go through the motions with them. I doubt they do that, but who knows? Regardless, they're going to have to figure that part out. But as I've sort of said all along, and you mentioned this, people are antsy. It's one of the reasons I didn't want to change coaches. Nobody wants to do a coaching search once they're in it. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. Everybody's immediately mad that they haven't hired somebody already.
Yeah.
And they're going to go through the time, as they should. I don't see the rush because, if you are somebody who's saying, man, I really hope the Browns hire Sean McDermott. If the Browns rushed and got the hire done, it wouldn't have been him because he was still in the playoffs. So there's nothing wrong with taking your time. And ultimately, if they hire the right guy, nobody's going to remember the order in which they were hired.
Yep.
Who was the first coach hired in 2022 cycle? Nobody knows.
Doesn't matter.
Nobody has any idea. So that part, I don't care. And there seems to be some thought process that somehow the Browns are losing out on something by not being done. And I suppose it's the assistant pool to some extent, unless you're keeping Jim Schwartz, in which the defensive side of the ball is basically done. It's mostly offensive guys. And part of the second interview process is sort of getting a loose feel for, what staff they could hire. So I don't really see that. And there's nothing going on for the time being. So, like, if you had to wait until the Super Bowl, it's not the end of the world if that were to happen. Just for my own sanity's sake, it would be great if the Rams would lose on Sunday and Shieldhouse would be ready to go. But, like, it's not really that big of a deal if the Browns have to wait. My issue is getting the right guy and not being in a situation where they run this thing back in 12 months and we're doing this over again.
Yeah. Well, the only argument that I'll listen to about it, wanting to wrap up things moderately quickly is for like the All-Star game practices, right? Like Senior Bowl and stuff like that. We're going to have the front office there. We're going to have plenty of representation. So it's not like we're going to miss it, but I would definitely like the coaching staff to be down there and get a feel for things. But if that's what we miss out on, so be it. There are far worse things in the world.
They tape everything. You can watch all the stuff. You've got your scouts down there doing the interview process, doing the intake process. A lot of this is just getting information and sort of, baseline stuff. If you're really that interested, you can obviously use the, various other events to sort of meet with prospects, be it the combine or whatever else. Again, these are not big deals to me. And like numerous teams or coaching staffs have either skipped the Senior Bowl entirely or skipped the combine entirely because you have people for that. Now, I would not advise that you miss the combine because I do think there's value in being face-to-face with these prospects, especially if you're trying to give input. But overall, I still don't see it as that big of a deal. If you're that worried about the prospects, great. You can go watch them on tape. But, like, let's say the Browns hire a guy tomorrow. They're still going to have to piece together the assistant coaches. They're still going to have to, like, meet and do all those things and get their ducks in a row before they get too worried about, well, we got to fly down and do this other thing. Like, this is sort of the cost of doing business when you change coaches.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And look, there's 6 more openings remaining now, and you still have the Bills, the Ravens, and the Steelers on there. So best case scenario for the Browns is we're the 4th best opening right now. That's just the reality of it. That's if you think we're better than the Raiders and the Cardinals, which obviously you and I do. But the rest of the world might not necessarily agree. The Raiders have the number 1 overall pick and seemingly have Fernando Mendoza. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Fernando Mendoza, it's quite a performance last night, man. That kid's tough. That was a good game, an enjoyable game. But that kid is tough as nails, Pete. I give him credit.
That's the biggest thing. It was just a fun football game to watch. I love the coaches' film broadcast. It was great with Eastbound and Down look and Mike Gundy operating that thing. It was good, but the game was awesome. We got a great quarterback play. I mean, the back shoulders to the Becker kid who's going to be back. Yeah. Presumably is going to be back at Indiana next year, catching passes from Josh Hoover. They're going to be good again, but magnificent performance. And then obviously the run at the goal line, you get that moment forever. Diving into the end zone. And, I said all along, bet against Carson Beck. He throws the terrible interception and he made a couple of good plays. He just does not impress me very much. Yeah. I don't think he has much of an arm. I don't think he handles pressure terribly well, though. I thought he had his moments against pressure in that game. And then, you're going to be watching him for a while in college, but Malachi Toney is really good.
Oh, he's awesome. He's a lot of fun to watch, man.
That, and then obviously, the defensive line for the Miami Hurricanes just wreaking havoc on Indiana, and the playoffs in general was impressive. And certainly watching the way Indiana and Miami sort of figured out how that game was going to play out at the end, with Indiana putting like 7 linemen on the field to get their last touchdown. Some of the other stuff they were doing was really good stuff. So I really fun game. I thought the second the punt was blocked, it was basically done. Miami gave it its best shot. Game close, but Indiana was the team I thought was going to win. I think Miami kept it closer than maybe I thought they would.
Yeah,
but
Miami was tough.
Their defense is tough. Their defense is really good. So I mean,
they're built well. They're strong in the trenches. Good running game. And look, I'm not a Carson Beck guy. I was very low on him coming into the season, but he definitely surpassed my expectations. I thought he played really tough. I don't think he's anything to really think about too much for an NFL future, but I thought he played pretty well within that system and for that team. So back to this Miami defense now. We've talked about Ruben Bain before, and I mean he's got so much buzz that he's going to be a top 10 guy, but you don't see it with him, huh?
Nope.
And don't the numbers back it up though? Doesn't he struggle against like any NFL level tackles? Like, doesn't he have issues with that?
The numbers like him, they're just not sure he's necessarily top 10 in terms of production and all those other things. And then you can decide, every team can decide how much they care about the numbers in terms of his arm length. That's going to be a thing for some teams. Some teams are not going to be okay with that. Teams like the Cincinnati Bengals do not care. Trey Hendrickson has short arms, has been great for them. Geno Atkins had short arms, was great for them. So they may not care, and they may be perfectly happy to take him. But, he has done really, really well against tackles that play like guards. And they also, it looked like Myles Garrett was playing the Steelers at times with how wide those ends were lined up. Now, to take nothing away from Ruben Bain, he's very good. But again, there's a huge separation for me from Abdul Carter last year to Ruben Bain this year. I think Ruben Bain is a tremendous college player. I think he can be a very good NFL player. But top 10 certainly comes with a level that I think you expect more than I think you're going to get from him. But does a great job with his hands, does a great job in terms of understanding angles. Jason Taylor's been a tremendous edge coach for those guys. Does a lot of things right. Obviously played really, really well in the playoffs. And, this did not happen last year in terms of guys who played super well in the playoffs sort of being then carrying over into like getting loftier draft stock. Like a lot of people thought Will Howard was going to go much higher than he did. As an example, that didn't happen. Is it going to happen for Ruben Bain, given the havoc he was able to wreak? Maybe. So, and just the way the draft is set up, I could still see him going that high, but no, there are guys that there are guys in this class who I just think are better as prospects than Ruben Bain, at least in terms of production and those elements. We'll see on the athleticism and the measurements and all that stuff. But there's a couple guys where I just sit on profile and go, okay, take Ruben Bain in the top 10. I'm going to come back and get this guy either at the end of the first round or the second round, or in one case, the third round potentially. And I may end up with a better player.
All right. Well, one thing that I would like to add before we go, I've been a real big fan of what Indiana's done these last 2 years. I think Cignetti's phenomenal. I think he's great. I love his story. I love his approach to the kids. I love his approach to time on task. He's got his kids in pads and practicing less than anybody in the country. He sends his coaches home at 5 p.m. Like stuff like that, I think is cool. But we are about to see like the ultimate like heel turn. I think he's going to be like the number one villain moving forward for the entire country. Just the smug, matter-of-fact way that he coaches, the way that he does his pressers. Indiana's going to be good, obnoxiously good and well-coached every year. This dude's going to be the most hated mofo in the entire country so soon. I really think he's going to have such a good turn.
It's definitely possible, but it's just like when you watch him, if he was doing anything other than being a football coach, he looks genuinely deranged on the sideline. Like you literally, there's something about the looks he gives. You're just like, what is wrong with you? Now it works for what he's
like a mean machine.
And clearly he does this with purpose, but nevertheless, like just looking at him doing some of the stuff he does, and he's 64 and all this other stuff. There's some element to that to it, but like he genuinely looks deranged. So I think there will be a small honeymoon period where people keep enjoying this, but I think there's going to come a point, it may come sooner than later, where, yes, he's going to become enemy number one if he can continue to sustain the success. Now, college football is going to love every second of him being the heel, and he's Saban disciple and all those other elements. Plus, he's got Saban basically like as his press guy in pregame.
Oh, yeah.
Also, which is going to feed into that whole thing.
You hear Urban Meyer talking about him? Urban
No.
Meyer says this is the most maxed out college football team he's ever seen. He's never seen a coaching job that maximizes players as good as the job Cignetti's doing. He said he's embarrassed to say it, but it's like the best coaching job he's ever seen. Like that's high praise.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question it's one of the all-time great runs ever, and the turnaround and everything involved. So there's certainly a case to be made. So I've got nothing for it on that. This was a tremendous job he did. Even after all this, yes, there are going to be guys who get drafted in the NFL off this team. Yes, they're going to have the number 1 overall pick, this team. But I don't think it's going to be like endless wave after wave of NFL guys like that come out of this. Whereas, like, you know, Saban's defense that lost to, you know, I'm trying to think who did he lost to not that long ago, where every single player had the NFL and like 10 of the 11 had sustained careers in the NFL. Like, Indiana's not going to have that, and yet they were that good. Now, some of that is a product of the changes of college football. The fact that, you know, Indiana had a lot of kids who are 24 years old on their team or older. That is part of this. The portal, the NIL, the guys playing longer, they changed it. So the dynamic that Curt Cignetti has gotten right and is crushing right now is finding the right kids to get out of the right grown-ass men to get out of the portal. The right guys with 2 kids and a mortgage out of the portal, and getting them to operate on the same element, because obviously we've seen this where, you know, a team gets a whole bunch of guys out of the portal, Florida State, for example, and everybody talks about how good they're supposed to be, and it's a complete mess. So Curt Cignetti gets a whole lot of credit for managing to figure out that element. The other part is how many of these guys on his team were out of James Madison, like guys he had at JMU. D'Angelo Pons is a James Madison guy. He's going to be pretty high, reasonably high pick in the NFL draft. So that's not getting a 5-star guy. It's taking a good football player and maximizing him to Urban Meyer's point, gotten everything out of him. He's one of the best corners in the country. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch to see how they can sustain it. Is that team going to get complacent? Hard to say, you know, how many of these guys are going to be able to maintain that hunger in terms of coming out of the portal and going here with the right expectations or whatever. It's genuinely going to be interesting. But obviously the thing that's going to come away from this is whether, and the Miami's on a similar trend with being able to work the portal effectively, is everybody's going to look at what Indiana's doing and go, what are they getting right that we have to improve? Yeah. And that may make it harder for Cignetti to maintain the success, but he's going to be good for a while.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I wanted to talk to you about D'Angelo Pons. I like that kid, Pete. I know he's small, but I mean, what would you think? Like 3rd round, say he's sitting there. Is that too early for that? Because that dude's a hawk. He's good. He's good in run defense. He's physical for his size. I really like him. He's a good football player.
I will be curious to see if he even lasts that long.
Yeah,
if he's going to be the sort of the turn from 2 to 3. As far as the Browns go, I don't love it.
Yeah,
he makes all the sense in the world in terms of the type of coverage he plays. I just hate the idea, and this is entirely a me problem, of having a secondary that has Denzel Ward and D'Angelo Pons, and a team just being like, okay, we're just going to overpower you, and you're going to have to deal with it, and we're going to make you take on blocks and play physical and see how long you can hold up. And to D'Angelo Pons' credit, he's held up. Denzel Ward, I don't recall him having any issues staying healthy at Ohio State. Yeah. But the wear and tear of the league obviously has been an issue for him, and he misses time. So that's what gets me a little bit nervous. The other more overarching point is I don't really want to spend a 3rd round pick even if that's what it is on a corner. So that's the other part is opportunity cost. And I don't know what's going to be available there. Maybe there's a scenario that makes sense, but like, I know a lot of people are like drooling at the idea of getting him out there at corner and all these other things. But I think the problem you run into is the way that offenses can manipulate how and who that guy's got to face. Being able to take a guy like a Harold Fannin and putting him over on Pond's side and being able to force him to take on a block like that. That's what makes, to borrow this again, we talked about it before. Jalen Petrie is really good at what he does.
Yep.
He's 210, but he's just a demon at that nickel spot in a way that, like, there's a reason he's being paid $13 million a year at that position to be that guy. It's not an easy job to do, and it's rare and special. So getting a guy who can do all those jobs is tough. So I certainly get the appeal for Ponce. His profile is fantastic.
Yeah,
that certainly goes in his favor. But I do get a little bit nervous at the prospect of having so many little corners. Like, unrealistic as it may be, I would love a team full of Tyson Campbells. I love Tyson Campbell because he's a good cover corner, but he's physical. Like, just in the small time he was here, how many times do you see him come up and make a run fit where if he doesn't make it, the guy's running and they can trust him. They can trust him to hold down that gap. It's such a huge tactical advantage to be like, nah, Tyson Campbell's got it. We don't have to worry about it. He's going to make that stick. He's going to make that tackle. Your defense is just so much better with that guy. And obviously it makes Denzel Ward better, but like, if I could, just give me a bunch of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like that's a conversation that they're eventually going to have about Denzel. Denzel makes a lot of money. And at one point, you're either going to move off that via trade or eventually move off it because he's no longer that player anymore. How much longer do you think Denzel will hold up and have the value that he holds right now? Do you think this is the type of thing that they're going to continue with him as is, maybe give him an extension? Or do you think
I don't see another contract, like not an extension, I would say at best.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways it would be defying the odds if he gets through this contract and they go year by year.
Okay.
I don't see a world where they're going to be like, hey, here's another 3 years. Like,
yeah. It's tough to commit that.
I think by the end of this contract, you're going to literally be going, I hope he can do another year of this. And I don't know how long you're going to be able to do that. So, yeah, I think the end is closer than that. I think his contract runs out in 2027. Mm-hmm. So you're hoping he can get through those 2 years. And I think if you do that, you're going to be thrilled.
Yeah, agreed on that. We had a couple of newsworthy blurbs for the rookies today. We got Harold Fannon's third team tight end, or is he the second team for the all-rookie team behind Warren?
There is no second or third team. There's only
it's just the first team.
The Pro Football Writers Association.
Yeah, the Writers Association, right?
Yeah, so Pro Football. I don't think there is. I think there's just first team, and he wasn't on it.
Okay.
And me, I think that's a crime. Not that he wasn't on it. I just think Tyler Warren was the third best tight end who got it.
Yeah.
I think Colston Loveland should have run away with it. And then Harold Fannin would have been second. But to that point, that's how good the tight end class was.
Yeah.
That you had those three guys. You had a Rondé Gadsden, who any other year is probably the first team rookie for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just insane that like there are that many good tight ends. No, the only two guys for the Browns that made it for the that list were Carson Sweatshirt, who got defensive rookie of the year, and then Mason Graham got it. But other than that, like, and that's the stunner. Like, your class was that good, and you can only get two guys on it. And Fannin being left off feels genuinely terrible because he was their best receiver this year. Genuinely their best receiver. And you can make a case for Quinshon Judkins as well. But obviously the injury and just the bad line play. But the Browns, have to feel really good about that class moving forward, that they had an argument for four guys to be on the all-rookie team.
Yeah. No, agreed completely. So circling back to obviously the coaching search. So of the remaining candidates, where is your gut taking you right now? Like, do you think this is ultimately going to be a Jim Schwartz-led team, or do you think they go with one of these two young guys?
I still think it's going to end up being one of the young guys, or at least I think Andrew Berry is going to do everything in his power possible to sell the idea of being one of these young guys. I think part of that is Jimmy Haslam seemingly wants this anyway, which is to innovate the offense.
Yeah.
The best way to do that is to hire a coach that's specifically going to be able to do that. The other element is if you can finesse it to be able to get one of those guys and still keep Jim Schwartz, which I have no fear of Jim Schwartz leaving. I just don't. One, if he leaves, I think they're going to find some candidates who want the job, and I might just give it to Efrain Band at that point. But like, are the Browns going to sit there and go, "Hey, we've got this defensive coordinator job opening. Does anyone want it?" And everybody's going to be like, "Screw that! I have no interest in coaching Myles Garrett or having all these players in place. Skip it." I'm just not afraid of that. And you know, if the Ravens name their head coach and it's not Jim Schwartz, like, okay, now he's got nothing as far as that goes. Yeah, there's a world where he could theoretically jump ship. He could go to a team like the San Francisco 49ers and be their defensive coordinator. Okay. All their guys are coming back from injury. Great. Mm-hmm. You lose the stuff you have. Like, this defense was tailor-made for you. So I don't even know if I would say it's calling its bluff. I just think it's the reality of the situation that, like, Jim Schwartz needs the Browns as much as the Browns need Jim Schwartz in this scenario. So I just don't fear that that scenario that much. But I also would love to know who Jim Schwartz is pitching as his offensive coordinator in the event that he is the head coach, because I don't know how attractive that is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, again, if the expectations from ownership are like, yeah, you get this job, but you guys have to win. And you're the offensive coordinator coming and going, looking around, and you've got three guys in Jerry Jeudy, Harold Fanta, and Quinshon Judkins, who's coming off injury, and you're like, we've got
none of them are offensive linemen or quarterbacks.
Yeah. It's just, that's tough. Now, it's a great opportunity to make a name for yourself, but, like, you know, we love to talk about this. Oh, there's only 32 teams, man. There are 10 head coaching changes this year. Like, wait 6 months, man. There's going to be a whole lot more openings. They're going to be really good. So, like, this idea, well, I've got to take my shot now. Maybe, you know, I guess that's true on some level. Like, there are guys that, like, have been brought up to me that I completely forgot existed. Like, Nathaniel Hackett was a head coach in the NFL. I completely forgot of his existence. So, I mean, there is some truth to the reality of you got to take your shot when it's there. But, like, I'm still wondering what the hell Robert Saleh is doing. Like, this may be it for you. Is this really the job you really want to bet on after dealing with the Jets?
Like, wasn't that seemingly quick too? Like, I thought Nagy was in the driver's seat for that job, and it just seemed like that came together really, really fast.
Oh, there we go. So Mike McDaniel appears to be taking the Chargers offensive coordinator job. So,
oh wow, look at that.
So, you know, if you're one of these people like, well, he's clearly saying he doesn't want the Browns job, and the Browns look stupid in this. He's saying I want Justin Herbert. This was his interview today. Like, he just said basically, I'm good. I'm going to take a job here. Yeah. Okay, that's life. Is that a great job for Mike McDaniel? Maybe. I don't know. There's some stuff there.
I feel like Mike McDaniel took a Tua Tagovailoa led offense to the top of the NFL, Pete.
True.
I have more than enough faith that he's going to be able to figure something out for Herbert. The main thing with the Chargers is they need that line to stay healthy. If that line stays healthy, it's a completely different universe.
You're right. But the quote I saw from Joe Alt talking about his knee,
his ankle
was like, one, I wanted to, like, cry for this man.
Yep.
And two, now I want to know what the interactions between Mike McDaniel and Jim Harbaugh are. Jim Harbaugh, who is like 60-something going on 80.
A couple of strange birds right there, Pete. That is the odd couple.
So, you know, that clears that whole thing up. But yeah, I just, you and I have talked about this. I have ultimately, if you can get a Sean McDermott, and I don't mean necessarily the person, I mean the entity of leader and all this other stuff, you feel really good about it. But, like, then worry about, well, we've got to get the offensive coordinator right in a way that you don't worry about defensive coordinator. Say what you will, but everybody is infinitely more worried about offensive coordinator than defensive coordinator on any of these jobs.
Yep.
Even like with the whole Jim Schwartz angle, like, there are people who are really high on Jim Schwartz. There are people who are sort of indifferent to Jim Schwartz, but they are way more worried about getting the offensive coordinator right. So if you get the head coach who can do the offensive thing, you feel so much better about yourself. One of the many reasons I don't like the fact that we moved on from Kevin Stefanski, but whatever. if you are the 49ers, you always feel like you've got a shot at it with Kyle Shanahan. The Rams, Sean McVay is a huge tactical advantage. Is Jim Harbaugh? Seemingly, yes, overall. Again, as a leader. But here, we're doing the thing right now. You had to get rid of Greg Roman because now we got to worry about the coordinator element. Like Dan Campbell, he's on his third non-Ben Johnson OC now.
Yeah.
Already, he has not been in the job that long. This is what gonna be year 6, is it not?
Going into year 6.
He had 3 years of Ben Johnson, which were great, but he had Anthony Lynn for 1 season, fired him. Johnny Morton for 1 season, fired him, and now they hired Drew Petzing. So, at what point, or if you're the Lions, do you then go, okay, and if Drew Petzing doesn't work, what's next? Well, it's probably Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
So that's the other part about this thing is the churn, and that's part of what got Harbaugh out of Baltimore is the churn. They kept making him change coordinators, and at some point, it basically got to a situation where he's like, "I'm done firing coordinators," and they basically like, "Okay, then you get out." Yeah. So that's where just the nature of the NFL, it keeps driving you to offensive guys. Houston, Texans. I think DeMeco Ryans is a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. Obviously, he's got some questions with that. Again, we're sitting there going, but what about the offense and the coordinator? It's tricky in a way that defensive coordinator is not, because there is a prototype or a setup that seems to work. You get a guy like Sean McVay, or you get a guy like Kyle Shanahan, and even if you have to replace defensive coordinators yearly, no one cares all that much. And then if you get a guy who's basically obviously he did with Wade Phillips, got a guy who had sort of was not going to get any more head coaching opportunities, and he gets to just do his thing. That's the benefit of Jim Schwartz with Kevin Stefanski. There was a sense that Jim Schwartz is done getting head coaching opportunities, which I still think is true. He's not going anywhere, and you get that continuity from that standpoint. And, so I just don't worry about it that much. So I think you're basically in the business of panning for gold. And if you come up with pyrite a couple times, okay, do it again. And that I don't like that that's the setup, but that's where all the incentives point you.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. We've been talking for a while. We both want to see somebody offensive. I think we're both very intrigued with the idea of both Grant Yudinsky and Nate Shieldhouse. I mean, you never know with coaches. There's no way to.
I'm very open about this. Yeah. I don't know.
Same. Which is why, for me, it's I don't want to say no to anything because these are all guesses. We have no clue how any of this stuff is going to work out. And I'm a little more lenient than you because I look at a Sean McDermott and I look at a Mike McCarthy. I look at all of these guys who ultimately probably aren't going to take you where you ultimately want to go, but they're going to raise the floor of this organization. They're going to put the team in a position to compete week in and week out. They're not going to give you the lows of, 8 wins in 2 seasons, that sort of thing. I see the condescending look you have in your eyes right now.
I have a question. I have a genuine question. I'm very
Fire away.
If the Steelers hire Mike McCarthy, your reaction is what?
I mean, my reaction is...
I know what my reaction is.
Yeah, go ahead and have that reaction. Honestly, I think that would work. I think that would work for the same reason that I think I would take McCarthy, because I think McCarthy is going to give us an adult offense. I think McCarthy's going to... I do, Pete. I think he would do the same thing in Pittsburgh.
I don't want to see that. I think he's going to give you a geriatric offense.
He's a good coach, and he develops quarterbacks. I don't want to see that in Pittsburgh.
What quarterback is he developing?
What do you mean? He made Dak better, and he took Aaron Rodgers, and he slow played it, but he turned him into a Hall of Fame quarterback, Pete.
He took a Hall of Fame quarterback at the peak of his powers with a great defense and turned it into 1 ring.
First of all, absolutely not. He didn't get a Hall of Fame quarterback at the peak of his powers?
Yes,
Aaron Rodgers' first start came under Mike McCarthy, sir.
Yeah.
So don't act like he was a ready-made, prepackaged Hall of Fame quarterback. No way.
I would love.
I get that the chat.
I want the experiment. I want the Steelers to do it. Steelers hire Mike McCarthy. Let's go. Let's roll. Listen, You don't want to tank. You want to stay competitive. Mike McCarthy will keep you at that 8-9 area right there, staring that sweet spot with him.
First of all, don't put words in my mouth, Pete. I'm conditioned to lose. Tanking is nothing for me, okay? I'll power right through an 0-16 season. No
you
problem.
will. Okay? I don't want the Steelers to do it, and I don't want the Steelers to do it this coming year.
Oh, so you think McCarthy's going to take them straight to Arch Manning?
No, what I'm saying is I want McCarthy to take them straight to 8-9.
Yeah. That's what he would do.
But this is a weird thing. There are people who are simultaneously like angry at the Browns because they want them to nail this coaching hire, but they also want to like box out the Steelers in terms of draft position. Like you can't have it both ways. Either they got to get better or they got to be really bad. And I got news for on both accounts. One, they're not going to out-tank the Jets. Aaron Glenn is not losing that pick. He is a Hugh Jackson-like talent in terms of making sure they're going to lose.
He's a defensive coach, Pete. The worst defense I've ever seen. They didn't have a single interception. He was a DB. What are we doing?
I don't.
How are there 10 job openings and the Jets aren't one of them? That's what I don't understand.
Because you know what his mission is. You know what the assignment is with him. It's like keeping Hugh Jackson for another year. You know exactly what he's going to do. And you're just like, listen, man, just keep rolling. You just take him right to the bottom. Yeah. But like, no, when I keep seeing these reports of like, and I don't buy this for the same reason I don't believe all the crap with the Browns. We're like, well, they're definitely going to hire Udinski or they're definitely going to hire Schwartz. I don't know. That could be how it goes, but I'm seeing the same type of like certainty or like circling of the wagons when it comes to Mike McCarthy. I don't know. I don't know if the report that Mike McCarthy dropped out of other coaching searches to focus on Pittsburgh was because the other coaching searches is like, come on, man, we're not dealing with this. Or if he's like, if it's true that he really, really thinks he's going to get the Pittsburgh job, fingers crossed.
Have you not seen all the Mike McCarthy, like, is Pittsburgh stuff? Like, he's like Pittsburgh, like, #1 fan. It's a wonderful story.
Wow. That was the whole like convoluted thing where like people were pitching this idea. Well, Kurt Cignetti's from like nearby Pittsburgh and his brother coaches over there. Maybe he'd want to go to the Steelers. And like almost the next day, I'm not built for the NFL.
That was immediate.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about. I'm fascinated by this one because I figured that we would talk to him, but the second interview has my interest really, really piqued. I mean, and this falls into the same category as really Shieldhouse and Udinski, but Jesse Minter, fascinating guy, lot of buzz, so much buzz about this kid. Supposedly a genius, all this other stuff, man. What's your take on him? And especially with the system he runs, doesn't he do like a lot of zone stuff, a lot of like disguise?
He does. Having said that, having watched what he's done, I think, and I'd be really curious to know what his sort of presentation is for this. Like, don't get me wrong, the Browns are not traditionally very good at zone, and maybe that's a coaching thing. I don't think it's a coaching thing, but whatever. But I think some of the stuff he does, like, I think you can manipulate some of the disguises and stuff and just do it out of cover 3, which the Browns run routinely. And cover 3 just ends up boiling down to like largely man coverage. It just with like a delay. All you're doing at that point is now you are allowing the receivers to dictate who's going to man them up. It's the same reason I like quarters in the NFL to like alleviate the issue of rub routes. You're basically like, okay, you pick who's going to cover them. Now, that puts more stress on you in the fact that you can't dictate matchups the same way. You have to have more good players. But like, as opposed to necessarily going disguise into cover 2, which the Browns utilize under Jim Schwartz and don't do very well, which is something that Minter likes to do quite a bit. I think you can manipulate some of those things to change the coverages to coverages that they can do it while still executing the same principles. I'd be very curious his take on this, but just the fact that he's still in it is intriguing on its own. Because my whole thing, one of my other things with the whole defensive coach thing is like, you are offering somebody a job while simultaneously, and particularly defensive head coach, where you're like, hey, we want you to take this job. by the way, when you get here, don't mess with anything. Don't touch anything. Don't do anything, and have a blast. Love it for you. It's going to be really exciting. So, like, you're not giving them a whole lot of room to operate. So there's not really a place to put your stamp on it unless you've got some great idea to, change it to a way that's going to be better. Maybe he does. Maybe he's got that figured out. Maybe he's really smart. I mean, I'll say this, like, the Indiana defensive coordinator is a demon. Watching him do the stuff he did to Carson Beck at the end of that game with the pressures and they show. But, like, it doesn't give you a whole lot of upside. Like, if he comes in and Jesse Minter comes in and they have a top 5 defense, then what? Like, is he going to get any credit for that? Kind of, sort of, in the sense that, like, they're still a top 5 defense, but, like, he can't really make it, like, that much better unless he can basically turn it into, the Houston Texans in terms of effectiveness, even though Jim Schwartz is closer to what they do stylistically. So I'm really curious what that's like. The other part about that I'm curious, and this is the part where we make the mistake of getting way too stuck on labels and what they've done in past. Jesse Minter has obviously been a defensive coach by trade. Jesse Minter may not think of himself as a defensive coach. He may think of himself as a much broader thinker than that. He may have real ideas for offense. He may be a guy who's like, reverse engineers offense based off of what gives his defense hell. So, like, these are the things. And, like, this is why I will quickly raise my hand and go, there are things I think about these coaches, but, like, at the end of the day, I don't know. I'm going to have, like, maybe 5% of the information if they've been a head coach before, less if they haven't. So, like, the fact that he's still on the list, is he doing this just to sort of get reps? I wouldn't think so. He could get that Baltimore job, and maybe that's a better fit because obviously he's, like, again, that weird incestuous relationship between the Harbaughs, Michigan, and and the Chargers now. Maybe that's the right fit for him, but, like, I'm intrigued, and, like, it's hard not to be. Again, as much as I would love to hire an offensive coach and be able to, like, man, we could take care of this and be done with it.
Yeah.
Would I turn down Mike McDonald? Absolutely not. He is absolutely crushing it with Seattle, and that defense is tremendous. And obviously they have Clint Kubiak, and if he leaves, there will be questions. But, like, he's really good at what he's doing, and it's working really well. And maybe it won't sustain. Maybe it will. The juice will run out. But he may win a Super Bowl in year 2. Yeah. So, like, if he can replicate some of that success, like, who am I to argue with it? And ultimately, again, I can talk all the shit I want about what I want and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, like, give me a good coach, and we'll be good. We'll be good with that. So he's the one I more than anything with Jesse Minter, I don't know what the appeal is for him to this job. Well, and I'd love to ask him.
I mean, wouldn't the former player in Mason Graham, Myles Garrett, Carson Schlesinger, Denzel Ward? I mean, I think it's clear why a defensive head coach would want to come to Cleveland. The question is, does he have better opportunities or opportunities with a better quarterback? Because when you're the head man, that's basically what it comes down to. I feel like he's probably a confident enough guy. He knows any building he's going to go into, he's going to write that defense pretty quick. That's what he's probably most confident in. Taking over this locker room and that quarterback room and that lack of an O-line and playmakers at receiver, that's a whole nother ball of wax. So I'm with you. I definitely see that he's intrigued with it, but I don't know if this is ultimately the job he's going to want to stake his reputation on.
Yeah. So, and these are the things where, like, I would love nothing more than the, candidates go in and do their interview. They come out and have to have a press conference where you can ask them, like, who are you and why? What are you doing here? And then why were you interested in this job and all these other? Yeah. Like,
how would you fix the quarterback position?
It's genuinely interesting to be like, what would make this job interesting? And his answer could be like, are you kidding me? I want to coach Myles Garrett, and be like, yeah, I totally get it. But I'd love to know what his pitch is in terms of, like, hey, this is what we've been doing. And the other part about this, and I know I've mentioned this before with, like, Chris Shula. Mm-hmm. The question with Chris Shula is, like, how much of the defense you run, in particularly coverage, is a product of what you have as opposed to what you want to do?
Yeah.
How much, and Jesse Minter could be in the same boat. Like, how much of Jesse Minter is running the zone stuff? Because that's what he's got. He's got guys who aren't that great at corner, and so he's got to play more zone.
Yeah.
He may come in here and go, man, Denzel Ward, Tyson Campbell, I'd love to do more man coverage, or I'd love to do this.
Yep.
I'd love to be able to put them in this position. And, I could be absolutely blown away with that. As you know, I have some quibbles with Jim Schwartz. Like, I think he's a good coordinator. I don't think he's a great coordinator. I don't think he's Mike McDonald, for example. I don't think he's as good as, dude in Denver. I don't think he's doing as well as what Houston's doing. Now, I think Houston's secret ingredient in that is obviously Jalen Petrie is the big difference. But like,
I was going to say Tommy Togiai.
Yeah, all credit to him, man. He's crushing it. But like, there are times where Jim Schwartz just genuinely leaves you wanting more. And so I'm not as married to that. So yeah, I'd be really curious to know what the pitch is for him, or if they call it dirty and go, hey, we actually meant to have you in for the second interview the first time, and I don't know what happened. Something came up, and the
you might have lost the email.
But we really need you to come in for that second interview. But I would have had the same curiosity with him because he's in Seattle. Like, what's your plan for this defense? Because again, what you have versus what you want to do, completely different conversations. And like, this is sort of the benefit of having coached at the level I have is like, you don't get to choose necessarily what you have, and you've got to sort of figure it out and come up with answers. So like, that's the big question is like with any of these defensive coaches where you're sitting there going, or any coordinator, like they could bring in somebody else who's just like, man, I've had this, so this is what I ran, but I've got this here in Cleveland and I want to be able to do these things. Like there's a level of question mark in the same way that like, there are people who think Kevin Stefanski's offense sucks and cannot evolve or adapt. And I'm like looking at this going, wait till he gets to Atlanta and suddenly has all these toys he gets to play with. I suspect he's going to do more things with the offense. And you're going to be like, where was this in Cleveland? And I'm going to sit there and point at Bijan Robinson, Drake London. Presumably they're going to franchise the tight end, Kyle Pitts. Like, it's not a comparison to that situation. So, you get to do more things when you have talent.
So now that we're talking about Stefanski a little bit, let's shuffle into that whole scenario. Did you see Baker Mayfield's tweet today? Did you see that? I found that to be very interesting. And wildly unnecessary, but still interesting.
I don't know how much of this is like serious or not. He may very well mean it. There's a part of me that thinks this is pro wrestling.
Yeah. It kind of seems like that because that's out of nowhere. You've just been sitting on that for 3 years. Like, what are we doing?
To a columnist in another city who wrote something about like, it's not Kevin Stefanski didn't give a quote. Kevin Stefanski didn't say this.
That's 2017 Baker Mayfield just getting on it.
Orlando Ledbetter just writing his column being like, whatever. There's the other part about this where I'm sitting here like this. What's really weird to me is this, it comes off very similar to Baker Mayfield did in 2021, where like he had a really bad year and he was hurt and he started lashing out at people. He had a really bad year this year and was hurt and is seemingly lashing out at people. It's just his pattern. But that's where maybe he's angry. Maybe he's like, he certainly wouldn't be the first former player that's been mad at a coach. And maybe that's fun. But it just feels like this much later, it feels like pro wrestling to me, where he's really trying to amp it up. And it worked because now everybody I want to watch it. I don't care about that element of it, but I do want to watch the Falcons and the Bucs just because of that dynamic that they've added a little juice. Because like, one, I'm extraordinarily jealous of the Falcons staff. Yeah, I love Jeff Ulbrich and getting to pair with Stefanski. They've got a really good defense. Like, that defense could give the Bucs hell next year, Baker Mayfield specifically. And like, I think Kevin Stefanski's really well set up there. Now we'll see what he can do with Penix and all that stuff, but like, they could easily win the division next year, easily. And Kevin Stefanski is never going to say a word about this whole situation. He's not going to say a word, certainly on Twitter. He's not, and I guarantee at his introductory press conference is going to be asked. And maybe that's why Baker Mayfield did it, because he knows this is going to come up and throw in sort of that widget. But that's, again, where I sit here and I look at it and go, is this real or is this pro wrestling? And I don't know what the answer is, honestly, because I could easily see it being both at the same time.
Look, I would say it's pro wrestling for a lot of guys, man.
Yeah.
But Baker is a salty, chippy dude. So I just like when I first saw it, somebody sent it to me and I first read it and I'm like, you idiot. I'm like, it's fake. Like, don't be so easily duped. And then I jumped on X and I jumped on Baker. So I was like, oh God, he did say that. It's like, come on, Bake.
I mean, look, he's powered by spite. And one of the things I loved about him coming out of college, because it worked for him. Now, he didn't grow up until seemingly he got out of Cleveland. And is this an indication that maybe that dude's still in there? I don't know. And maybe it'll work for him. Maybe he needs that because, again, he had a really bad season this year. And again, was hurt. He's settled there this year. Yeah. But this
is the last year of his deal, though.
Yeah. So he needs it.
Into the last year of his deal. This is a big season for him.
It's a pivotal year for Todd Bowles, who a whole lot of people thought wasn't going to survive.
Yeah. Well, doesn't that feel like a dead man walking situation? Like, I'm surprised they didn't fire him. I think if it were a different year, they might have. I think they foresaw a lot of openings and just didn't want to deal with all that. But I don't know, man. I can't feel good about my future in Tampa if I'm Baker.
I suspect the Buccaneers regret heavily not moving on as they've watched this play out, because I think they could have
about Bowles. Yeah,
I think they could have gotten a better coach and felt really good about it. And I don't dislike Todd Bowles. I just think he sort of is what he is.
Yeah.
And the thing that works against Bowles is what sort of happened at the end of the year. And he wasn't wrong to basically be like, we've said everything we can say at these guys. They've got to decide how much it matters to them. But like that sort of suggested to me like this was a problem. The other part about this is like part of the reason he's still there is because Bruce Arians continues to like fight to the hilt for this man, which to me is what without the whole Baker Mayfield thing, pouring gasoline on fire.
Yeah.
But Bruce Arians like took shots at Kevin Stefanski, being like, how is he still employed and all this? And like, he is actively, constantly pushing to keep Todd Bowles in a job. And I get it. He won the division twice. So it's not like he doesn't have a leg to stand on, but it's just interesting that that's the thing. Because like, I remember at the time, like there were suggestions that like the Bucs should fire Bowles. And if the Browns fired Stefanski, the Bucs should go look at Stefanski. Obviously this would suggest that wouldn't work, but like would have been a great setup for them in terms of like the offense and having receivers and all these weapons and everything else. But yeah, I mean, I don't love Todd Bowles to survive this year. I don't love the Bucs to necessarily have a great year. To their, to the thing that saves them is that Jason Licht is a really good GM in terms of the draft. Yeah. And maybe he can sort of power them up a little bit from that end. But like,
well, isn't it kind of a cautionary tale? Isn't this basically what you're looking at if you choose Jim Schwartz and he works? You're looking at that, right? You're looking at you're constantly worried about the offense, constantly worried about the quarterback, trying to do all this, that, and the other. He's an older guy, he's a veteran guy, he's a great coach, he's a great defensive coordinator, and he can be a solid head coach. But is he that guy to get you where you want to be? I think Jim Schwartz would do a good job. I don't know that he's ultimately the guy that we want, and I think we would be settling if it's Schwartz. So I look at that Bowles situation. I'm like, I don't want to be in that situation.
Todd Bowles, Lovie Smith, and obviously Lovie Smith went to a Super Bowl. With the Bears, obviously Houston Texans' tenure wasn't great. But like, yeah, that is exactly what I'm worried about. And that's what I worry about, that we're back here in 12 months, or that we are doing the Todd Bowles thing where we're sort of like, everybody's sort of waiting for this to sort of end and move on to something better. And like, they aren't doing it. So I agree. I don't see the vision there, but like, we'll see. And again, Todd Bowles is not a bad coach. I just don't think he's jumping on anyone's list of like top 10 to 15 coaches in the league. And that's unfortunately like not helpful for him.
No, but he's an excellent coach. And if he does get let go, he's going to be a top 15 coordinator in the league, and he's going to get a job in a heartbeat. But he's just not a head guy.
If he were to be let go and you're a young head coach on the offensive side of the ball, you go, I'll bring in Todd Bowles and he can run my defense for years and years and years and be the head coach of the defense type thing. Yeah, I mean, that's Todd Bowles is like the archetype for what you want to get. And that was what he was for Bruce Arians before he obviously retired. And then again, really pushed hard for Todd Bowles to get the job. And I think Todd Bowles sort of was better than maybe I thought. I thought he was an okay coach with the Jets. I thought he got a raw deal because the Jets were just a mess.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much more there is for Todd Bowles than what he's shown.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Jeff Hafley to the Dolphins, I find interesting. And I find it interesting because like it does nothing for me. It does not move the needle for me. I hear great things about Hafley, but I wasn't overly blown away with Green Bay's defense, you know. And I look at Miami. I don't know. I don't know about that hire. I don't know how I feel about that hire.
Well, they went 2 Packers guys. They got the GM from the Packers, and they got the head coach from the Packers. So that part was sort of a natural connection. I think Hafley did a really nice job with the Packers defense. Obviously, when it had Micah Parsons, it was a hell of a lot better. He got like a whole lot of Keyshawn Nixon before that sort of went by the wayside. Like Keyshawn Nixon was playing at a really high level for a while. And he doesn't have a ton of great assets there. Micah Parsons was like going to cover for a lot. Now, you know, Devontae Wyatt was doing a little bit better. Van Ness was doing.
Got some pieces, Pete. I like Rashawn Gary. Quay Walker's good. Edrin Cooper's good. They've got some dudes. Who's the Xavier McKinney at safety? He's a stud.
He's good.
Got some guys, man.
But the linebackers are why I tell you not to draft linebackers, because those are your best players. Yeah. That's the unfortunate reality is like when linebackers are your best pieces, like you're typically not very good. It's such a correlative position because they have Edrin Cooper is a stud.
Yeah.
And their defense was like, okay. But like what they've had is underachieving guys. Devontae Wyatt, 24 years old when they drafted him. Don't do that. And Lucas Van Ness, who really checked a lot of boxes, has been like, okay, and then was decent. Rashawn Gary has fallen off a cliff in a lot of ways. Again, that's why Micah Parsons was brought in to sort of fix this thing. And in getting him, they gave up arguably one of their most productive guys.
The stud.
Yeah. So, I mean, and they had guys who could sort of do that, and Devontae Wyatt was doing okay, but like they have interesting pieces. Xavier McKinney is a very good player. But like, I thought they got a pretty good amount of out of that group for what's in it. I think the talent is pretty good. I think he got better than what he had for the talent. Is he going to be a great head coach for the Dolphins? I don't know. I immediately assume Malik Willis is going to go there, but we'll see. And that could be part of what makes this thing work, is especially if he were to say hire a, you know, assistant from Green Bay, a quarterback's coach or something who has a good relationship with Malik Willis, and you just go bring him down to be your offensive coordinator, and Malik Willis follows him. That could be a interesting way to play it. So I'm the same way you are in terms of like, I don't know if it's going to work or not. The other part the other part of this is like the Browns showed no interest. So it means very little to me. They're taking a piece that wasn't taking a piece off the board that the Browns had no interest in. So, okay, great. They hired a guy the Browns weren't interested in. The same way that the Titans hired Robert Saleh. Cool, but like wasn't in my, purview, so it didn't really matter. So in that sense, it's taking a job out of the equation without taking a guy that the Browns are interested in out of the equation.
So real quick, somebody just asked, AutoWorks in the chat just asked a question. I would love for you to answer it, Pete. Why is it a mistake to draft a 24-year-old or an older prospect in general?
Okay, so obviously this is changing a little bit in how the NFL draft is working because college players are staying longer. But ultimately, the theory behind the case is pretty simple. If you are a 24-year-old guy who looks good against 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, that doesn't tell me a whole lot.
Yeah.
And even as we are seeing players stay longer, like Akeem Messidor is going to be 25 on draft day.
Mm-hmm.
And he was obviously playing really well for the Miami Hurricanes. Even so, Mekhi Lemon is going to be 22 or 21 and change. I think he's going to be 21 and change. Carnell Tate is going to be 21 and change. It makes it like, so you, on the one hand, you can say it's not as big of a deal to take older prospects. On the other hand, it really highlights that younger players are doing it against grown-ass men and succeeding. Mm-hmm. So, like, on the one hand, you can sit there and go, well, there's so many players that are older, it's not a huge deal. It really highlights that the guys who are good and young are doing it against guys who should theoretically already be in the NFL. So it's giving you an even bigger contrast. So, look, I'm not saying you can never do it because there are guys where, like, there's an Arkansas receiver who's really, really good. And depending on price, like, I could totally see it because he's playing at such a high level that the data sort of argues for it. But where do you draft that? For me, it's not before day 3 at the earliest. And even then, I still have some skepticism because the other problem you run into typically with these guys who are like 24 years old, they're either instantly good, like Kobe Turner for the Rams and the other dude from the Rams, Byron Young,
mm-hmm.
who were instantly very good for them, or you flame out pretty quick. And there are numerous guys in that boat. And if you draft, I'll use one from this weekend. Farmer Gronk was drafted 24 years old out of Ohio State. Terrible. He's terrible. And I feel bad for him. He got hurt. I don't know what actually happened to his knee, but like I remember that draft. Like all these people were like, "You should totally take Farmer Gronk. He's gonna come in and be really, really good right away." And he's terrible. He's like their 4th string tight end. So that it sort of increases the risk in terms of boom or bust for a lot of those prospects. So I don't like the idea of taking 24-year-old prospects. There is a point where you can do it and not feel terrible about it. But like, I just, as a general practice, I try to avoid it like grim death. And we've seen so many examples where you take an older prospect and they are terrible immediately and it feels awful. Obviously the Browns with Brandon Weeden, certainly older than 24, but like, remember when the Eagles took fireman Danny Watkins out of Baylor, who was like 26, and they did, and all these people, oh man, he's gonna be great, he's gonna be awesome because he's beating up on children, and he could not play. So, there's this element to it where you sit there and you go, it's a risky element that I do not like. I think the one thing that you could sort of make the case for in terms of drafting older is if they were really good, really fast. Like they're still in college at 24, but they were really good at 18, 19, and they just stuck around. Now, why are they sticking around that long? I don't know. I mean, the NIL money's good. Like if you're Trinidad Chambliss, and not that he's a good example, but I understand why he's suing the NCAA to try to stay in because he's, it could be $5 million this season as opposed to $5 million on his entire rookie contract, if that. So just in general, I hate it. Like inevitably somebody will be like, well, the Browns should look at Akeem Messidor. And I will sit there and go, no, he's going to be 25 on draft day. He's old and he's picking up on terrible players. And we run into this all the time where like people keep pitching old prospects. Which linebacker? Peyton Wilson was one that a couple years ago, like there are people in our forums who are going, man, Peyton Wilson's so great. He's so athletic. He's so this and he's so that. Not very good. And he's 24 as a linebacker. And like people are like, take him in the 2nd round. And I'm sitting there going, don't. And here we are. And he's not very good.
Yeah. Well, I will bring up the name Deion Henley. And I liked him out of Henley was what? Wazoo?
Washington State.
Yeah. You didn't like him because he was old, Pete. I told you he's a stud. I like Deion Henley.
I don't think he was old. I think he was
he was 23, I think, when he came out.
A little old. And I know he was super, super productive for Washington State. Yeah, I mean, look, when you get into the math, like there's give and take on that whole thing, but just in general, you're just better off skewing younger as much as possible. Guys who have succeeded earlier, guys who are consistently good. In what round would I take?
The older trench guys too are the ones that can really throw you, because like that's when it's like at like Mesidor against Ohio State's got sophomore tackles out there, and there's 25-year-olds beating the hell out of them. Like that's a take with a grain of salt type thing.
Where would I take Mesidor? I wouldn't take him until round 4, like at best, and even then I'm skeptical. And he's not going to last that long. Some team, I pray it's not the Browns, and they damn well shouldn't be at defensive end, are going to take him at like the turn at like the first round, and I'm going to laugh at them and point at Gabe Yakis and go, the team that takes him is going to be so much happier with that than the team that took Akeem Mesidor. And like, people don't keep the receipts on this crap. They will hype these guys up and tell you how great it is to ignore all these things, and they aren't very good. Braden Fiskey was another one where I was sitting there going, he's got really short arms and he's 24, and like, I don't really like him, and he's kind of okay for the Rams. Like, the guy who's crushing it in that role is Poona Ford.
Oh, yeah.
Poona Ford's crushing it inside, and Kobe Turner is the exception. Kobe Turner came in at 24 and absolutely dominated as a rookie. And Jared Verse is very good, even though he absolutely was a non-factor for most of that last playoff game. But like, Braden Fiskey, to me anyway, is the weakest link on that defensive line, and they used a second-round pick on him. It does not feel good.
Okay. Now, we talked about Malik Willis a little bit earlier. We alluded to him possibly going to Miami. You see, Jeremy Fowler put out a piece where he, polled a bunch of front office people in the AFC, NFC, and where some of these guys would end up, free agents. And the thought on Malik Willis was either Cleveland or Miami. And I found that interesting. And I know you don't like it to Cleveland because you think that effectively takes us out of 2027. But I'll be honest with you, Pete, I'm not necessarily sure that's the case. And I would be open to, like a 2-year deal, front loaded with money, but easy outs after the first year if it doesn't go your way, and you can look to the 2027 draft in that scenario. Is there any part of Willis that intrigues you, or are you out completely?
I like the talent. That's the thing. Yeah. I think he could be a good player. The sample size is tiny.
Yeah.
There are other problems with it that I
very small. Hasn't he only thrown like 35 passes this year? Didn't I see that?
Yeah, he's only played like one game and part of a game. Like, there's not much. There's other elements that are reasons I think he will not end up here. One of them is his agent. His agent is David Mugoleta, who is Deshaun Watson's agent. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of business sense for him to get his client here. Beyond the Deshaun Watson part, which I think he could ultimately get over, I think he's going to look around and go, why am I putting this kid here? I want him to be successful. And if he goes to Cleveland, unless they make dramatic improvements, which I probably cannot see fully until the draft.
Yeah.
Like, I may be putting this guy in a position to fail. Whereas Jalen Waddle is sitting there in Miami waiting for me, and Devin Achane and all these other guys. But like, there are other teams out there where I think just make more sense. Like, it would not surprise me at all, if Pittsburgh makes the full court press on Malik Willis, because they have no clear avenue to a quarterback, and they've got stuff in place that could work with him. Having DK Metcalf, having giant tight end, and being able to like sign him, and then like, and God, I'm hoping I'm not giving them advice, taking a guy like Casey Concepcion and being like, here we go, we're off and running, and being able to like get this thing running really fast with an offense that suddenly makes a whole lot more sense.
Mike McCarthy'd win 12 games with that unit, buddy.
He might. But like, there are just other teams that like Arizona can make a push for him, and be like, we've got Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson and Paris, the left tackle. That's the part where I sit here and go, I understand why they're going to sit here and look at Cleveland, because on some level they're going to be like, Cleveland's in no man's land, so they have more reason to push. I don't think Cleveland wants to do it from a philosophical standpoint, even though, signing with Malik Willis could theoretically, jumpstart them in terms of competing if he can deliver. But I don't think they want to give up the possibility of being able to draft in 2027. And I think you're going to have to guarantee enough money and years to Malik Willis, where I think it's going to effectively take you out of that. And I think when you pitch Malik Willis is basically, or Mughaleta in this case, basically say, we're not coming here unless we get, a firm promise that you're not going to draft a quarterback in a year, that this guy's not a placeholder. He is coming here to be your starting quarterback. And Andrew Berry is almost certainly not going to make that promise. Miami might, because they've got to, and they're in a similar situation. They've got to sort of get through the, get through the contract issue with Tua, but they may not want to get a quarterback because they've got these other pieces in place, especially if they've got a defensive head coach in Jeff Hafley. So they may want to just jumpstart the offense and be like, we're ready to roll with you. We just want to get you up and running, and we're going to keep this thing. So I understand why people are linking Malik Willis to the Browns. I think ultimately it's going to be more of a leverage play than a reality.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, let's talk about these remaining opening jobs, right? So Bills, Browns, Raiders, Cardinals, Steelers, and the Ravens. Does Sean McDermott coach next year?
If he does, I think it's in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I'm more inclined to think he doesn't. But we'll see. It's tough when you get dumped into the market like he did late.
Mm-hmm.
But, these teams have been patient, including the Browns. But I don't see an obvious good fit for him. I can't imagine he wants to go to Arizona and deal with that.
Yeah.
Unless they can lay out a plan, like we're going to get Malik Willis and you're going to have a quarterback and we're going to be able to run this thing. I cannot envision a scenario where he's going to go to a team that doesn't have a quarterback because he's accustomed to winning and he doesn't want to go backwards that much. Baltimore gives him that. Is Baltimore the right fit for him and Lamar Jackson? I don't know. And obviously in that it's who's the offensive coordinator. And at least up until 20 minutes ago, there was a theory of the case. Well, it could be Sean McDermott and Mike McDaniel. Well, that's out of the window. So now who's the coordinator you can bring with him? Is it Joe Brady? It does nothing for me. Maybe it's more enticing to them.
Yeah.
But it's the same problem where you're sort of stuck in this spot where does McDermott elevate you? Yes. Does he elevate you enough for what you need him to do? I don't know. The spot where I could, we just mentioned before, if Tampa goes into the office tomorrow and goes, Todd Bowles, get out, and then hire Sean McDermott, I could totally see that making sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a tough time seeing him on a team this year. Now, the other team that I think could make weird sense would be Pittsburgh. Now, to your, whereas I would probably fist bump if they hire Mike McCarthy. I would not like them to hire Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
I think I would like him to stay the hell out of the division if possible. But yeah, those are the two teams where I think the AFC North is basically where he would end up under the current circumstances at best. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to coach this year.
Who's going to coach in Buffalo? This one is super intriguing to me because I'll tell you, the early favorites. If you're listening to Vegas, you're looking at Joe Brady, Brian Daboll, and I forget who the third one was. I can't even. I think it was Mike McDaniel, and now he's out.
I know I've seen this pitched by players, loosely connected to Buffalo, which is Davis Webb. But what you could theoretically do is to try to get Vance Joseph and get him to bring Davis Webb with them. Now, is that feasible? I don't know. And maybe they'll just say, screw it, we're going to go with Davis Webb because for the same reason, get an offensive guy to pair with Josh Allen, get him to just go off and do the thing. I could see them do the Daboll thing. Josh Allen has a level of comfort with him. Brian Daboll is apparently maybe less of a prick with Josh Allen, and maybe that is enough.
That's the word. He and Allen get along great, and Daboll's also a Buffalo guy. So
I could see that, but it's another one of those things where and obviously, look, Buffalo was not eager to get rid of him. He legitimately got a head coaching job and left. So it's not the end of the world if you revisit that thing, but it's always weird when you go back in that type of situation. So I don't know, but there's a lot of push for Davis Webb. Is that based in any reality? I don't know. Are they going to wait out are they going to call up Mike LaFleur and see if he wants to do it and go, hey, this is a great opportunity to get Josh Allen and all these other things. Maybe. Yeah. And I also don't know if the other question I would have with Brian Daboll is, does he want to deal with Brandon Beane? Does he want to deal with that element? Or does he have the similar feeling as Brandon Beane does in terms, or as Sean McDermott does, and he basically looks at him like sort of a traitor of sorts? That's the other part. So that's the other reason I can see them going super young and doing a thing like Davis Webb, is because they promoted Brandon Beane. He's got more control, and maybe they feel like they've got to get somebody he can control, or if he really wants to dig into that sort of, you can call up Freddie Kitchens and do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got another question on this Buffalo job, but I also want to address the chat. I'm not wearing a baby bonnet. Okay, this is the old 2003 sideline cap for the Cleveland Browns, buddy. But I will say this: it is legitimately like -5 degrees outside, and my man cave is in my basement. And let me tell you something: it's freaking cold. It's really, really cold, which is why I wear a beanie every time you see me on this show, because I'm freezing my nips off, and I'm not happy about it. But either way, that's my piece. That's why I'm wearing a baby bonnet. All right, so back to Buffalo. Pete, if you're Brandon Beane, right, and you've got Josh Allen, what do you do at head coach? Because you seemingly only have one hire. If Beane screws up this hire and hires the wrong guy, then he's obviously out the door whenever they decide to make a change. So what do? Do you take a chance and you go with a young offensive mind and try to completely unlock Josh? Or do you go with a safe, strong, sturdy veteran coach that is going to get you back there? You just need things to break the right way. Because I feel like what McDermott did, it wasn't broken. It wasn't not working. He didn't have the pieces.
Here's the problem. Brandon Beane either doesn't believe that or needs the owner not to believe that, which is how they got rid of Sean McDermott, which is why I think they're going to go offense.
Yeah.
Because they do want to listen, if you are the Bills in general, you're going to bet on the guy that gives you the best shot. In this case, it's Josh Allen. It's not the defense. The defense has some interesting pieces, some good players, but they've sort of retooled and reworked that over the course of years. This thing goes as far as Josh Allen takes them. And obviously, look, controversy aside, in terms of catch, no catch, interception, the Bills lost the game because they turned the ball over 5 times. Mm-hmm. And Josh Allen is simultaneously the reason they had any shot to win that game at all, and part of the reason they lost that game. And that's sort of the deal with him and what they had in that game. Again, their defense was flawed. They have Khalil Shakir and some tight ends, but they don't have very good weapons. So I think that's why I think they're the Davis Webb thing makes sense. And if it's Daboll, I get it from that standpoint where you're sitting there going, we were this close. We're going to try to recapture that magic and do that. But we'll see, because Brian Daboll theoretically doesn't have much to in terms of the ability to dictate terms, but he might just a little bit be only in Buffalo. Because they may need him just pretty badly, and that might give him a little bit more ability to dictate terms. But I don't know how far. So I think they will go offensive guy. It's just a question of veteran offensive guy. Could they pull a Todd Monken? Maybe. Yeah. But Brian Daboll or super young is probably the way they go.
Or Mike McCarthy if they really want to maximize Josh Allen.
Well, I had thought that this was a tailor-made job for Mike McCarthy.
Hell
because
yeah.
You don't have to do anything to get the quarterback. It's just
I can win with that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he said what he said about pulling out of other jobs, or it was reported. If Mike McCarthy should have quote tweeted person saying focused on Pittsburgh and said, I am open to Buffalo if they will have me. That is, I can make this work. So yeah, that is one of the things I thought when I saw that job open is like Mike McCarthy still hanging around. I was like, that is perfect for Mike McCarthy. Yeah. I don't have to do a thing at quarterback. I just make this thing go.
All right. So as I mean, everybody's so anxious to see what we ultimately do at the coaching job, at the coaching spot, because that's immediately going to turn into the mock off seasons and the free agency speculation and the draft speculation, everything like that. So now that the college football season is officially over, I feel like we still feel pretty comfortable, right? There's going to be a wide receiver or an offensive tackle at 6. There's going to be a wide receiver or offensive tackle at 24. You hesitant there for what? The wide receiver part?
I look, I guess I can talk myself into being nervous about both, but like, I guess I will say this. Like the people who have disagreed with my idea of taking Mekhi Lemon at 6 are like, just take Casey Concepcion at 24. I don't know if he's going to last at 24. Yeah. In a lot of ways, I think Casey Concepcion is going to be what people hoped Jerry Jeudy was going to be in that, but that there's more concrete evidence to believe that Concepcion's going to get there. And I like Jerry Jeudy. I think he could be a good player, but like in terms of Jerry Jeudy was originally drafted 14th. Yeah, there's some expectations would coming with that and not being on his second team. So that's where I sit there and look and go, well, yeah, don't get me wrong. If there's a really, really good offensive tackle that's worth 6th pick, I totally get it if they make that choice. But I would be very nervous about Concepcion lasting that long. And I guess the wild card with that whole thing is where does Jordan Tyson really go?
I was just going to say,
and I don't know.
Have Concepcion right now? I mean, I know it's early. It's early. There's a lot of stuff that needs to flesh itself out before we can have like a legitimate rankings. But what do you have Casey at? You got him at 4? I'm assuming you got like Mekhi and Tate as like a 1A and 1B scenario.
Mekhi Lemon is number 1. Carnell Tate is number 2. Casey Concepcion for me is number 3.
Okay. And then do you have Tyson at 4?
I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I'm not – even if I was a doctor, I'm not his doctor, and I can't evaluate the risk thing. But if I'm just looking at the situation and going, I've seen him get a serious knee injury, ACL, MCL, PCL. I've seen him get the collarbone at the end of his sophomore or whatever year that was. And then
this year's all soft tissue, right?
Hamstring and shoulder and all this other stuff. Like, he's a great player when he's healthy, and I don't like that in the first round at all. So that's where I sit there and go, Casey Concepcion is 3 for me. And I've heard arguments that Casey Concepcion should be 2. I would still take Tate, but that's fine. There are people who would take Tate 1. And I suspect in the draft, that is what will happen. I think Carnell Tate will be a top 5 pick. But I think Mekhi Lemon is the better player ultimately. But then, Concepcion is right there for me.
So, Pete, I'm sure we got a lot of Buckeye fans that are tuning in right now. Like we all know and love Carnell Tate. What is it about Mekhi Lemon that separates himself from the others in your mind?
So the difference, obviously, and some of this is out of Carnell Tate's control, but also not. Mekhi Lemon was the offense. Like, he had 410 more yards receiving than the next guy in the offense. He had 9 more touchdowns than the next guy, who's Jacoby Lane. And some people are going to try to argue
he's not a bad player,
Mekhi Lemon was so dominant that he essentially sent Deuce Robinson to the portal, who's a stud at Florida State. Yep. He sent whichever Georgia receiver is going to be in the draft that isn't very good, but nevertheless, some people really like.
Zachariah Branch.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are all USC guys. Mekhi Lemon was so overwhelming that they're like, screw it, I'm out of here. I'm going to go find another spot, which was the right choice for them in that move. But like, that's how much of a dominant force he was. Mekhi Lemon's target share is insanely high. It's like 25%. And that's if I include the bowl game he doesn't play in. If I take out the bowl game, it's like 27%. So what does this say? One, everybody in the stadium knows where the ball is going, and they still can't stop him. So that is always a big part. Just his overall production is better than Carnell Tate. The ways you can utilize him a little bit, and some of this is a product of being in the slot, but you can give him manufactured touches because he's a little bit like a running back. You can hand him the ball. You can do a lot of stuff with the slot weapon. You can do some of the elements he attacks a larger swath of the field than a guy like Carnell Tate. He breaks more tackles than Carnell Tate. Now, some of that, again, function of usage. Those are all elements that play it there. The argument for Carnell Tate is he is the prototype in terms of height, weight, speed.
Mm-hmm.
He's been incredibly good in terms of like his ability to create touchdowns and the amount of touchdowns he creates relative to touches. Obviously, he's a vertical pass threat. You can sort of immediately look at him as an X or a Z in a way that you can't with Lemon. He's not going to be an X. Not to say you can't put him out wide, but that's just it's a difference and potentially a meaningful one. And the best argument for Carnell Tate, which is why I put him at 2 and not lower, is the profile he has suggests that if you just give him more volume, it will pay itself off. And this is where playing across from Jeremiah Smith hurts him a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, the other part about that is, as a result, there are parts of games or full weeks where he doesn't need to be a factor. You know, and again, this is where if you sit there and argue, well, if we just increase his volume, he will pay it off. And that could well be true. But it's worth pointing out that he's on a team with Jeremiah Smith. He doesn't have the production that like would necessarily just automatically tell you he's a number one receiver, even if you can sort of get that out of the data. So like there's just certain elements that I think benefit Lemon. Carnell Tate's also, they're both really good at contesting catches. Carnell Tate is slightly better. Carnell Tate is more of a specified deep threat, I think, overall, though Mekhi Lemon's really good at that. But yeah, I mean, just proven volume, proven production, proven all these other elements are why I ultimately give the benefit to Lemon. And like, I prefer evidence as opposed to hope. And I'm not suggesting that Carnell Tate is entirely built on hope. There's plenty of evidence that suggests he can be really good. But ultimately, I err on the side of Mekhi Lemon between the two. I just think he's done it more consistently, has done it. They both played really good schedules because they both played in the Big Ten. Nobody could stop him. And just, you know, aside from the numbers, which are really good, just the way Mekhi Lemon plays
we talked about that before. Yeah.
He plays like Harold Fanning. He plays like Quinshon Judkins. He's just a dog. He goes up and gets the ball. He has, in some cases, you're sitting there worrying about it because he has no regard for his body if he can go get the ball. He also will block. He does all these things where you're sitting there going, I can easily fits the personality and I think the mentality you have in terms of what you're trying to do offensively. So to me, it's easy. But, you know, I still think Carnell Tate is ultimately going to go first.
Well, what would you say to me asking which one of those guys do you think would have a bigger impact? I mean, we don't know what the offense is going to be yet, right? But given the current setup we have, let's take the offensive line out of it. Let's just look at receivers. Do you think Tate provides something that we need a little bit more than Lemon would? I mean, and not for nothing. If we say we get a wide tight end, say we re-sign David Njoku, right? And we kind of move Fannin around as a bit of a slot, that sort of deal. Like, wouldn't having an X out there and a true number one and a deep threat be a little bit better for the offense rather than a slot guy like Lemon? Or do you think, I mean, what's your thought on that?
Again, the argument that he can be a real X or Z is certainly a compelling one. The role is valuable. They're not easy to find. However, the difference to me is everything Mekhi Lemon has done to this point doesn't ask if he's the number one. It tells you I am a number one receiver. I am a high volume receiver. I am a high target receiver. Feed me the ball and I'm going to pay it off. Again, the defense knows it's coming and they do not stop it. He's a matchup problem in the same. I mean, they both are in many ways, but like, you know, I look at sort of like, you know, the Browns, when they played the Lions, you sat there and you go, okay, the Browns are probably going to be okay on the outside with their corners. And Grant Talbot's really good on tight ends. So, they have they have a good tight end, but we're okay. You sat there and you looked at Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're like, we don't have anything.
No answers.
And in that game, seven catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like it, teams obviously put a high priority on corner in general.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that slot is more valuable than outside receiver. What I am suggesting is that if you get a phenomenal one, that they can be a real game changer. And again, even if you have multiple tight ends, I can put Mekhi Lemon outside.
Mm-hmm.
I also think just in terms of what we're watching in terms of the NFL, I think Mekhi Lemon scratches the itch that is very similar to what Puka Nacua does in terms of how he wins. In terms of, I don't know if he's going to block that well, but he will block. I think you can incorporate him as a big part of your running game. I think you can incorporate him in terms of the way Puka Nacua is really, really good in terms of catch radius and all these other elements. Some of it's just him fighting for yardage. Mekhi Lemon gives you that. He's not going to be as big because Nacua is 6'2". And 200 pounds, but Lemon just is a fighter and he will punish poor tacklers in a way that few guys do. Carnell Tate will run away from guys, which is certainly valuable. And, I don't think this is a reason to do anything in terms of the draft ultimately, but I do think there's something to be said for the fact that I think Mekhi Lemon's game translates to Northeast Ohio potentially better than Tate does. And you'll laugh and say, well, Carnell Tate's been playing at Ohio State. Yeah, I get it. Watch Mekhi Lemon in the pouring down rain against Iowa, and you're just like, wow, he's unbelievable. But just the way he plays, I think is very, translatable to any climate. He can be great in a dome, but it's a really good outdoor game because it's tough, it's physical, it's all those things.
Well, and what I like about Lemon too, and I think every offense needs it. And the Browns have needed a lot of things for a lot of years, but I like chain movers. And I like guys that are going to make tough, contested catches on big money downs. And Mekhi Lemon's that guy, man. He's feisty. He attacks the football in the air. He plays with his hair on fire. And somebody asked in the chat, what NFL player does Lemon compare to? And Pete, I thought your comp was incredible.
Yeah, to me, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm very curious as we go through this process. Assuming he tests, and I hope he does. Everybody should test. Give me the information. I don't care about anything else. Just tell me. Amon-Ra St. Brown, coming out of college at USC, ran a 4.6, which a lot of people knocked him on. But in terms of the agility stuff and explosion stuff, so his jumps were fine. His agility was pretty good. He did really well on all that stuff, but he ran 4.6. Mekhi Lemon is not going to run that fast. He's going to be probably in the 4.5 range. But I suspect he's going to be very similar in those explosion tests in terms of body control, which you can see on tape. That's the stuff where you watch tape and you sit there and go, I can see it in action. 3-cone if he does it. That's the one thing I want to see from him more than anything else. What is your 3-cone? Because I suspect he's going to be sub 7 because of his body control. He has great balance and those type of things. But he's strong, so I suspect he will jump well. So those things. So you sit there and even though if you look him up on the teams listed height and stuff, they'll say Amon-Ra St. Brown is 6'1", 200 something pounds. He measured 5'11" and change, 197 pounds at the combine or his pro day. We'll see what Mekhi Lemon lists at.
Yeah, doesn't that make you worry a little bit that Mekhi's listed at 5'11", 198?
Because, to your point, Mekhi Lemon is listed 5'11", 195. So if he shrinks, that may throw it out the door. And we may be talking more along the lines of
Mekhi Lemon at 24? Hi-oh!
No, I was going to say in terms of comparison, you jump from a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown to a guy like Parker Stevenson, who's 5'9" and about 200 pounds and may not be super comfortable with the idea of taking him 6 to your point, but you'd love to have him on your football team. He's a nightmare right now. He had a great season.
Parker Washington.
Parker Washington, okay.
Yeah. For a second, I was like, "Shit, who is this? I don't know this guy."
Like you watch him, and you're like, he's 5'9", and you're like, he's a nightmare to deal with this season. So like, I will be very surprised if he's like suddenly comes in, he's 5'9" and 3/4, but we'll see.
Yeah,
he looks like a guy who's maybe 5'10" and change and 190 pounds or whatever. We'll see. But like, that's the guy I compare him to. And like, you sit there and you go, okay, well, Amon-Ra St. Brown went 4th round. And yeah, I totally get it. But here's the thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown is averaging 1,250 yards and 8 touchdowns per season. And he is Detroit's number 1 receiver, even though he's primarily a slot guy. He can move around, which Mekhi Lemon can do. But if you're telling me that you knew what St. Brown was going to be coming out of USC, you wouldn't have given up a top 10 pick to get that guy to get 1,250 yards and 8 touchdowns per season.
Absolutely would have.
Wouldn't be in a second. So if that's who he is, and his data is better production wise than St. Brown was, because in part St. Brown was there at the same time as Drake London and another stud receiver, but he never had like the super season in terms of production. He was just sort of steady Eddie for the large amount of his run. Mekhi Lemon blows everybody away in terms of his production, elite production. So that's where I sort of sit and go, and you can sit there and say it's lofty and well, he's never get 1,250 and 8 a year. He may not, but like, I'm more talking about, and when I wrote it about in the article, my whole thing was not only is it the way he plays that I think, and the athleticism, all that stuff, but it was, you could easily steal what Detroit's doing offensively. They have the tight end from Detroit is very good. He's very similar to Harold Fannin. So you just borrow the concepts that they're doing and the offense that they're building. They have a really athletic tight end. They have a really good slot receiver, and they have guys on the outside. Jameson Williams, very exciting in terms of athleticism, all that stuff. But you have Jerry Jeudy you can put on the outside or move around or whatever. You have Isaiah Bond on the outside you can move around or whatever, and he can give you that. He's not going to be Jameson Williams, but he gives you that downfield speed element. You still have Cedric Tillman who can play outside, and if he's nothing else, he's at least going to be Isaac Tesla. I think Cedric Tillman's better than Tesla, but whatever. You can easily sort of forge out an offense and you go, I can do this. I can have a great identity built around the idea of St. Brown or Lemon, Fannin, and Quinshon Judkins mentality, how they win and what they do, and basically be outdoor version of Detroit. Yeah. And that be your offense and be like, yeah, I can work with this, and getting a coordinator to get on board and do that. So I totally understand the idea where you're sitting and go, I like Carnell Tate. He's the traditional X receiver. And I'm not knocking Carnell Tate. I think he's a very good player. And I think he's going to be a good player. But if you're asking me, again, it comes down ultimately for me, it's not what I can, it's not what I think, it's what I can prove. I can prove that Mekhi Lemon has done these things and has done them at a very high level. It's the same thing I did last year when I said, get Abdul Carter if you're going to stay at 2. Abdul Carter was on the all rookie team and all this other stuff. He's an absolute monster. He's going to be just a killing machine next year too. I will be very surprised that Mekhi Lemon is not a very, very special football player. And I'd like it to be in Cleveland.
Amen to that, man. Well, Pete, as usual, awesome job. Great show. Great information. Always appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us for these 2 hours. It is always a pleasure chatting with you guys. We will be back next week. Probably not with a new head coach, but maybe with a new head coach. You never know. But as the schedule is panning out right now, we've got Jesse Minter Thursday, Grant Udinsky Friday, Nate Shieldhouse on Monday, hopefully, knock on wood. And then
you know what's going to happen now. It's going to be like 45-3 Rams.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait another week. We'll figure it out. But either way, Pete, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you to the OBR Streaming Network for hosting us. Check out OBR.com. This is the time to do it. The off-season is the best time for the OBR. Check out the insider forums, all that stuff where Lane and Pete and everybody's just cranking out information left and right. Always a pleasure, guys. Stay warm. Have a great night, boys. Catch you guys later. Go Browns.